Hello folks, my name is Mark. Welcome to my channel, and today is July 22nd, 2025. It's a hot day. It's the afternoon. Outdoors, indoors. We're going to start a project here today in the 6x10 cargo trailer. So I have solar panels on the roof, and I have wires from the solar panels that come down, and they come in through my hole right there and then go to the machine to collect the solar electricity. What I would like to do is to have those wires come directly through the roof, probably in this area, and then just come down the wall to a circuit breaker, a switch, so that I could turn the electricity off and then continue down the wall and into the machine. So in order to do that, I need to take apart much of the ceiling. And when I put the ceiling back together again, I would like to just add 1 inch of the XPS foam. It's got an inch in it now, but I think I'd like to just go ahead and add another inch while I have the ceiling torn apart. Now, I've purchased a few items in order to do this job. A crimper tool to do the cables. These are cable glands. I think I only really need one, but so the cables come in through there and then enter the trailer. I've got some cable ends and the electrical switch circuit breaker device. So, and I'm just going to use the cables that I have. I probably need to buy some new ones eventually, but for now I'll just cut up the ones I have. And so we'll be taking down all the wood on the ceiling eventually, as well as the lights and a few of the cables that stretch across these my clothes holders, the hanging rod, wire. So let's go ahead and get started. right, it is day 2. Current conditions right there. It's the afternoon. It's hot in here. I've turned on the air conditioner, so it's doing its job. And you know, yesterday we started taking stuff apart, and I stopped, right? And today I took down this piece of trim that used to be right here, and you can see behind there. And so I have a small filler piece of plywood that I put in there so that it would have more solid material. You know, it's the same thickness of the plywood. And then I left a little gap in here, and this is where my wires were, right? So thinking about how I want the insulation to interact with the walls, I want my insulation to butt all the way to you know, this wall. I don't want it to butt to the plywood. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take down my trims, take out this little 1.5 inch piece of plywood, put in all of my insulation, and then probably rip this down a little bit and put it back, right? And then put this back, rip down a little bit. And you know, over here, it's kind of dark in here. I took down some of my lights. This is the main reason why I want to add insulation. You can see that nut and bolt and washer. A little bit of rust right there, rust on that washer. And so what happens is in the very cold, when it's super cold, frost forms on that nut and bolt. That the outside of that bolt goes directly to the outside, so it's just a conduit for cold, and it forms a nice frost layer. And so I need to insulate that from the warm, moist air in here inside my space in the winter time. And so that's what I hope to do with this additional 1 inch of insulation. So same thing on this side. I'm going to take down this plywood and put up the insulation, and then put the plywood back. And now my wires won't be able to live there anymore. Try to turn this thing off. So they won't be up in this hole anymore. So they're going to be down here, right? On the outside. I need to get a chase or a raceway or whatever you want to call it. Some kind of a way to obscure the wire. Here you can see that I've just put a little trim and a little trim, and then I cover it up just like this. A little trim, and then cover it up. Same thing right here. The wire goes in a little trim, and then it just gets covered up. But anyway, I need to do something all along this top because the wires are all there. And all of this trim and my extension cord need to come down. And in the corners, this is a very long piece of wood that goes way down. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to get a razor knife, and I'm going to trim this off 1 inch from the top, which is my insulation value. And so you know, once I put the insulation in there, that should butt right to the bottom of the insulation. And there is some wires behind there, but I don't want to mess with that. That's just going to be the same as it is. And so today I went and I got some more stuff. I got the insulation, 2 sheets of 1 inch, the same as what's up here. And let's see, I got some fancy washers, and I'm going to try to incorporate these when I put all the wood back up. And I bought this pack of grommets at Harbor Freight, because the next step that I have to do is I'll take down this one piece of wood, and then this piece of insulation will come down. And over in the corner here is where I want those solar panel wires to come through. Right, so I need to drill a hole through the ceiling, through the roof, and then put a grommet on there, and then use these cable glands to seal that up. So we'll do it. It's hot outside, and I don't want to do that right now. So I was just telling you the plan, and then maybe we'll spend a few minutes opening up some of this stuff and having a look at it, because I mean, I've looked at this, but I haven't looked at how this works, or I haven't opened up any of this stuff. So let's go ahead and do that, and that'll be the plan for the day. And tomorrow we can start doing some work. All right, well, I've got you over there as a change of pace instead of overhead. So let's start off with this grommets assortment. Now, I only need one grommet, but if you go to Home Depot and try to buy a single grommet, they want to charge you $3.50 or something like that for one good size one. Or you can go across the street to Harbor Freight and get a pack of them for $5, right? And it comes with a few big ones and lots of little ones. I only need, like one big one. But anyway, grommets. I probably have a grommet laying around somewhere, but I don't know where it is. Alright, this is cable gland. Now, hopefully I only need one of them. It's got a rubber seal. I don't know, I'll probably take that out and just put butyl tape in there. And it comes with little tiny screws. I'm definitely going to I'll probably drill it out and put bigger screws in there. Something that is long enough to engage some wood on the underside of the aluminum, because I'm going to trim it out in some small wood, So we got grommets and a cable gland. Alright, so I need to cut cables to length. The solar voltaic cables, they're 10 gauge. And they use these ends, MC4 I believe they're called. And so this is a pack of MC4 connectors, male and female, and I've never done this before, so I don't know, but you got to have a special tool to crimp it. And so this is a Klein ratcheting crimper for MC4 connectors. And I bought this like a year ago, because I knew I needed to do this job, but I hadn't got to it yet. And I don't even really know how to use this thing. So I'm going to have to read the instructions and probably watch some videos on how to do all this stuff. Alright, here is a switch. So once I get the cables through the grommet, through the cable gland, they're the appropriate length, I have them coming down the wall. They need to go into a switch so that I could turn them off and on if I need to, work on the lines or something. So, I seen this box recommended online. Pretty big box. Some instructions. Alright, so there's a circuit breaker box. Wow, comes with a lot of stuff. So you got a switch in there, some cable Gland type connectors, this is the one I want to use. It'll come in 2 wires into the box. Some tape. Alright. So, little circuit breaker. Use the connector. Cables come in. They connect. Got the switch. They connect, and then they go to the Bluetti downstairs. And like I stated previously, I want this to happen, somewhere like that. Anywhere, really. So the cables come in, they go onto the wall, and then they go right into this thing. Cable glands just right up there. Some wood framing for the cable gland to screw into. And then the wires come down and follow these other wires down below. All right, well, I'm gonna put this stuff back where I can find it. But that's the plan. That's what we're doing this for. And of course, getting more insulation up on the ceiling. All right, see you tomorrow. This is all the fasteners I've taken out. Various screws and bits and bobs. It's a lot of stuff. there's the ceiling, the aluminum. The outside is just on the other side there, so you know, I want my hole to be in this vicinity somewhere. It has taken me some time to come to a conclusion on where to drill my hole, and there's a couple of factors that are playing into it. I think it's going to come out right here. Previously I had wanted it to be in this area, but there's some problems on the outside, and I'll take you out there and show you just a second. But I think it's going to come through right here. You know, I have my hanging organizer, and it sticks out 6 inches this way, so I should be good, and it's close enough that it'll get down there onto that wall good enough. Let's go outside. I had to move this solar panel to get it out of the way to do the work right here, but I think that's where it's going to go. And I wanted it to be over in this area, but it doesn't work good, and I can't put the screws in depending on how it is, and I can't drill the large hole unless I go from the underside in this area, but I still can't get a good job, you know. So I considered going like this. I definitely want these to be in the rear. They could be on an angle, I think, but I don't necessarily want them like that. So, you know, I could put it like this, but that's very close to the round pulley thing for the door. So I'm up here now. So I can still get to the wires. I can still get to all the holes. I can drill the hole. I can do everything right there, and it's not too far away. So that's where it's going to go, I think. Pretty slick. Can't be delaying. I don't want a big gust of wind coming and taking my panel away. Now I want to make some wooden backing for this thing, for these screw holes and whatnot to go in. And I found this scrap of wood amongst my piles. It's a little bit dusty, but I think we can make it work. 5/8 of an inch thick. I guess I'd rather 3/4, but I'm gonna go ahead and try this, see if it works. All right, I've got my location, and you know, I thought I'd be able to fish the wires through there pretty easily, but I'm starting to think that I probably won't be able to fish them through terribly easily. So I need to cut some wires to length, to approximate length, and then have them sitting in there ready to go before I go forward with this, I think. Otherwise, I'm just going to be taking it off. I mean, I could drill the other holes, I suppose, and then work on it. So that's my first crimp on a MC4 cable. First time using the tool. I think it looks pretty good. I did lose 2 of the strands of the wire when I was stripping it out, so I need to do that a little bit better, but just kind of in a rush trying to learn how to do this stuff, and I don't want to take a lot of time filming it. I just need to get some wires sticking up and out of the roof and dangling on the inside so that I can continue. Well, here's my first cable. It is 3 feet long, and I've just stripped the end off there because it's going to end up going into the circuit breaker on the wall there. So maybe 10 inches or 8 inches to get out of the trailer, and then there'll be a little bit more than 2 feet of cable up there to meet up with the other cables that I have to make that come from the trailer or from the solar panels themselves. Well, something like that. Should be able to get those to go in pretty easy. All right, I'm going to go ahead and, so I've just got the 2 screws sticking through here. I need to put that wooden frame on there and get it started and then put the other screws in. So I backed the screws out to where they were just barely poking through. I put the wood where it belongs, you know, centered on the drill holes, and then taped it in place. Now I'm going to go up there and tighten the screws, and hopefully that'll suck right up nice and tight. Good and tight. Works in theory, but I got to work on my execution a little bit. I need to suck it up tight. So I had removed all the screws, and then I just did the 4 corners, and now I'll fill in the middle part, the middle screws. Looks good and tight now though. Well, the last thing to do is to tighten up these, and that should seal off the cable. And these cables, I just want them to be out here, and they'll go basically just like that. And then they'll connect to another set of cables, whatever length they need to be to get the various, you know, series and parallel, whatever's necessary. I'll make cables of appropriate length. I think that'll be fine. You know, go something like that. Box on the wall. So the next step is, I think we need to put that panel back before the wind takes it and breaks it. And then we'll come in here and install this one piece of insulation that I've taken down. We'll have to cut a hole to go around the wood. All right, good morning. It is the third day of our project, getting started a little earlier today. I don't have to run off to get any materials as far as I know. So yesterday I was able to get the cables in and the gland sealed to the ceiling, to the roof. And I put back the one piece of insulation. And so now I want to start putting up the extra layer of insulation. And when I go to put my wood back up, it's going to be completely covered. I will not be able to see the holes or even the studs or anything. So I want to meticulously mark my screw locations so that I could poke a hole and find the screws. So I've got screws for this piece of wood, screws for the piece of wood that goes this direction, a center piece of wood, and then another 90-degree wood, and then another piece of wood that is over there. So I want to mark, I'm going to write down on this piece of paper all of the locations of those holes from the wall edges, I guess, so that I could find them. And it's still going to be fun. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to just take it nice and slow. I want to try to get a good tight seal up around into all these hard corners. Now I know that the insulation isn't going to fit right here, so we're going to have to notch around it on these wheels. So it's a little bit of work. Now that was not easy to put in. I didn't really expect it to be easy, but it was still harder than I thought it would be. But maybe it's not all the way up, but we're just about half on. And well, it's good and tight, that's for sure. Probably need to adjust a little bit around some of this stuff. I think it looks pretty good though. And we'll see if I can get it to stay up. All right, so after looking at this for a minute, I realized that the trailer must be out of square by the tune of 1/2 of an inch, because when I push this all the way up, I've got a large gap there, and it shouldn't be that way. So what I was trying to avoid doing was having to break the insulation on every ceiling stud. I mean, every other one I thought was okay, but if I have to break it on every one, well, then that's not as good. But I think what I'm gonna do is, I can't get this piece out easily. So I think what I'm gonna do is cut through right here, which will be the location of the stud upstairs, right? And then I can maybe get it out, or just do things a little bit easier. And I guess the future pieces will be 2-footers as opposed to 4-footers. We'll see. getting ready to put up this wood, and all of my 1 1/4s are no longer long enough. I'm gonna have to go with 2-inch. Luckily I have a bunch, and of course I'm gonna put these finishing washers on there for a new look. We'll see how easy or hard this is. So I was having a really hard time locating the holes for the screws blindly. So I pulled this one piece back a couple inches and put those in loosely, and I hope to slide this panel just up in place where it needs to go. We'll just do it section by section. Let's see how that works. had to notch this one because I didn't feel like chewing away all this plywood that's a little bit higher than an inch on the wall. Well, good morning. It is day 3 of this interior project, exterior project of getting the wires into the space here and then adding insulation to the ceiling. And this morning, current conditions, this morning I assembled the front portion, which was a pain in the butt. It was kind of tedious, so I didn't really film it, but I had to take out this piece and that piece in order to slide this one in, and not the greatest crack right there, but there is insulation right on the other side of it, so I'm not too worried about it. And then, even though I tried to be very careful about not marking up my ceiling material, there was a pencil line that I made right there, but no worries. So there's still a little bit I need to fill in around here. I'm gonna go right up next to the crack here, and then I've never installed this thing. It's a cover for it. And I'll go ahead and get that installed. It's a little deep right now, so I'm going to have to trim it down to get it to fit. And then later on today, maybe we can get these long pieces put back up. And then we can start working on fixing along the perimeter, putting up our wires and figuring out what how I'm gonna hide this stuff. I'm gonna have to do something. All right, well, the next time I see you, this part will be done and we'll be working on the plastic cover. All right, I was trying to bring in the long pieces and put them in place, and I couldn't get it in there easily. Previously, there used to be a gap right here, and there's a little void behind there, and I was able to slide that board into that void, giving me a couple extra inches to position it to clear this spring and bar, right? Kind of go on an angle and then get it in there. And another issue, I mean, obviously the foam is very close, and carved it out so that it just fits in there. And this little knob right there raked the foam a little bit, which is fine, it's going to do that when I opened it. But the main thing is that 3/4 inch 1x needs to go right here, and this is now less than 3/4 of an inch. Now I can pull down on the spring and get 3/4 of an inch, but I don't know. I feel like I need to rip down this 1x. These ones are about 1/2 inch. I could take an 1/8 inch off the 3/4 and make it 5/8, and it'll fit a little bit better up in there. And then I'll still have a little bit of difference between the two, 5/8 versus 1/2 inch. There's plenty of room on this side for a 3/4 inch piece, but 3/4 inch right there just doesn't want to fit good. So I need to decide what we're going to do. In order to get the piece in here, I either need to make a hole to use that space, or maybe if I remove these center pieces, I might be able to get it flat enough against the ceiling that it goes up under there. If I make the board thinner and then give it some more room to go up under there, I don't know. What you doing? Hi. 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 There's my poopers. There's my poopers. Hi, butts. There's my poopers. There's my poopers. All right, I have ripped down the piece of wood to 5/8, and notice how when you roll up the door, it gets a little bit more room right here, but no worries. We still want it to be clear of that if we can. And then I've removed all of these center boards so that they won't be in the way we'll go ahead and try to get that piece in here now. All right, it went in. Kind of scraped a little bit here because I had to come in this way and then slide it over, but it is in place. Get some screws in it. A little later in the afternoon, I was having trouble with the long pieces, getting them attached to the ceiling members. And I was using these 2-inch screws with the head finishing washer on there, and that worked pretty good on these 1/2-inch material. And really there's just a 1/4 inch of thread in the hole, right? It gets right up there before it snugs up. And so the longer pieces, being 5/8, a whole 1/8 of an inch more, I was having a real hard time getting purchase with the 2-inch screw. So I scrounged up some 2.5-inch screws, which are a little bit thicker, a little bit longer, not too long. We don't want to go through the exterior ceiling. So, but I think we still got, I don't know, 3/8 of an inch to spare, and I could always grind them off, but I think we'll just try this for now. We'll get, oh, and let me take you outside. I drilled out these holes a little bit bigger so that the bigger diameter screw would pass through easily. Well, after an unbelievable amount of poking and prodding with these longer screws and getting things in exactly the right place, blindly through an inch of insulation, I managed to get all of the screws in the original holes. I didn't have to force any new holes in the metal framing that's underneath this wood and insulation. So that's a nice thing, I think. That one might need to go up a little bit farther, but yeah, it was a pain in the butt putting it back together, but it is done. And the next step is I need to put up the trim that looks like this around the top, but we're an inch shorter now, so I was going to rip down the trim to fit, and that way the same screw holes should work again. The alternative would be to trim down each and every one of these little studs, which just seems like more work than running it through the table saw. So let's get started. Current conditions, I think this is the fourth day of working on this project now. That's not solid days, that's just working a little bit here and there whenever I had the time. All right, it is the next day, probably day 5 of this project. And, yesterday I got up these trim pieces and put up wires for my lights. Hung the wires all the way around the perimeter. Now, these are the trailer lights, and they used to be buried in a little space where this insulation now exists. So I pulled them out, and I've just stuck them and zip tied them to this power cord. You can see my trailer light comes down behind here. And I need to put up this little trims to hide some of that, but I'm out of the tiny 5/8 inch brad nails. So I need to pick up a pack of brad nails to finish that up. And I've got little plastic things holding my wires in place. So that was yesterday. So today I need to do the hanging bar, put my hanging bar back up, and these are now an inch lower than they used to be. So I need to trim an inch off of these pieces of wood and then reinstall that along with this stuff and the aluminum bar, wherever it is. And then once that's done, I can work on this electrical right? So that the hanging bar is going to be up there, and my electrical needs to come around somewhere, and I need to install the box. This box right here. I was just looking at the instructions. Seems pretty easy to put together. They give you these rubber plugs, but I don't know, I don't have any clue what they're for. Unless they go over the screws on the inside, and then you put the rubber cap over the screw on the inside. I don't know. There's no instructions for that. No worries, we'll figure it out. So we'll get the little bit of carpentry done, and then we'll start working on the electrical. Once the hanging bar is back up and the electrical is in, then I can work on getting the screen back in place. And then there's a few other things that I want to do while I'm working on this space. All right, that's it. All right, I was working on getting the top bar of the screen hanger, right? So the screen hangs right here. And I realized that when I built this, I notched this out 3/4 of an inch because this upper piece was 3/4, but now I've shaved this down to 5/8 and I've got a little gap right here. And I'm not happy with that. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take this piece back down and then running the top of it through the table saw, taking away 1/8 of an inch all the way across. I'm not even gonna take this apart. I'm just gonna run the whole thing through the table saw, and hopefully that works. Well, that didn't really go as good as I hoped. It chipped out and broke and is uneven, but I'm not going to replace the wood. I'm just going to have to live with a little bit of little gap right there. But I need to trim this piece so that that fits in there and do something with this wire because it's just sticking out. Maybe trim this piece, this little thing, so it has room to come out without being pinched. Same with over here, right? I've got this wire that's hidden, but I need to move the whole thing over, and I need this wires to have a space to exist when this moves over. So I'll just notch out a little bit of this trim. I put it in upside down. Well, I got that far, and I put it together just about every wrong way that you could do it. First, I had the whole box upside down. The breaker was upside down. So then I took that down and took it apart, and then I was having a hard time, so I was doing different things. I ended up putting soap on to go through the rubber grommet, or I guess grommet. And then there's a plastic crush washer or something that I put that on backwards and then had it reassembled, and then realized that was backwards and had to redo it a third time. So I've got some wires. These will be to go down just almost to the floor, and then I'll put on another set of new ends like those, but new, and connect that to the box. But I think what I'm going to do now is spend a few minutes doing this screen. I need to redo some of the tape coming in right here and up to the top part right there. We got a screen back. That's nice. I was noticing it's quite hot in here. It's time to turn on the air conditioner. Indeed. All right, let's see if we can make a cable here. This is the end that I cut off, and I just want it to be like this. Right, so this particular, the tabs have broke off, so if it looks strange, it's because there's no tab sticking out. But this is the male of the plastic, but that's the female of the metal part that comes with these units. So you have a male and a female, and they fit together. So we want the female metal part. And don't look to me for deep knowledge of all this stuff. I'm just going by what was here and what worked before, and I'm just going to recreate it. So we don't need this stuff. What we do need is this piece, these pieces, and some nippers. So let's just set that aside. We know we need the female metal part. So we got this. Now I don't have any fancy strippers, so I just do things by hand. All right, maybe 3/8 of an inch back. I'll put on my glasses so I can see good. And I just carefully go around the perimeter, being very conservative, and then I'll start biting into it a little bit, just being careful. Then you can kind of just break it apart once you get it close. I don't ever actually cut to the wires, I just get close to the wires. Alright, and so you've got a rubber piece that fits inside your little crush washer, I don't know what it's called, and that fits inside of your cap, the crushing part, right? So you put the cap on and the crushing part, right? Get your tool. This is a nice tool, I like it. It seemed to work really well. I've only done this a couple times, so I'm not good at it by any stretch of imagination. And there I go, messing it up again. My problem is that I don't have anything to hold the wire still. Oh, you know what I did last time was I got it started just a tiny bit like that, and that seemed to help. Alright, that should be good. Now, that goes inside there. This slides up into there, and tighten that up. Now the kit came with these two plastic tools. They're not the greatest tools, but they worked for the other one I made. Kinda. I mean, it slips a lot. I don't know, I think I'm going to grab a pair of pliers for that. Back with my trusty pliers. And there we go. One more to make. And so this style of connector has the male pin inside of it. So we'll need a male pin. Which I'm pretty sure is that one. All right, well, I thought I was recording, but I just put all this together in front of the camera for you. But when I went to go press stop, I was not recording. All right, so this is going to go into the bottom of our electrical box. Just got to secure it a little bit. Bundle it with these other ones. Well, it is a new day. I think today is Wednesday, the 30th of July, 2025. And yesterday I think we worked on the screen and we worked on this electrical box and some of these wires. Current conditions. All right, well, this morning I went to the store to get some brad nails, and I found these at Granger Industrial Supply. $3 a pack, $2.67 a pack, versus Home Depot's cheapest pack was $6. And then they had some other stuff, $9, $11, $12, that kind of stuff. So I bought 2 packs at Granger for less money than 1 pack at Home Depot. Go figure. So I needed these brad nails to put up the little trim that goes over some of this wiring. This needs to be cut down. I'm just going to cut it down to right there, and then everything above that will be exposed, is the plan. Some of my trims are loose. I need to reattach them, and I'll just add a little piece here just for fun. And then so we got the hanging bar back. That's good. Used that last night. And eventually we'll be getting up underneath this bed to get to the solar wires under there. And what the main job today is making some more solar wires for the roof of the cargo trailer. So I have up there, you know, 2 panels, and 99% of the time I have them hooked up in series. So one panel connects to the next panel, and then both panels connect to the wires that come down and come in and feed the Bluetti unit. So what I want to do is I now have 2 wires that are sticking up out of the roof, and they go through that cable gland, and they're just up there. And I need to connect those 2 wires to the solar panels. And I don't think they're going to stretch, and I think we're going to need appropriate size cables to go from one to the other. I don't know how long they need to be. I haven't really been up there. But not only do I want to be able to hook them up in series, but I occasionally might want to hook them up in parallel. So I have this set of parallel adapters, and so the cables need to be appropriate sized, whether if I'm in series or in parallel. And that is today's project. Now, I just wanted to mention that, you know, I've tried to out parallel quite a few times, and I never really gain a lot, right? So the way my cargo trailer sits is that every morning the sun is behind a tree, behind this tree, and I get shaded solar panels until the afternoon, like 1 o'clock or something like that. 2 o'clock is unimpeded sun, depending on time of year, of course. But let's look at the solar input right now. 46 watts. 45, 43, 46. That's about average, right? That's what I get. I might get a little bit more if the panels are real clean. They're probably pretty dirty right now, but that's what I get in series, 2 430 watt panels for this time of day, and it's every day like that. So when I put them in parallel, I only get an extra 10 watts, or maybe 15 extra watts, from 50 to 60 or 45 to 65, you know, 15 to 20 watts basically at most. So I don't know why I'm so concerned about having the ability to go to parallel with the panels, but I just want to do it anyway. So I was going to show you what I get with parallel, but I don't really feel like messing with it. So let's go upstairs and try to figure out how long of a cable I need. And I might need to cut up my other cables. This is all I have left of the 10-foot cable that I originally bought and have been using for a couple years now. And here we are up at the top of the roof. These are my little cables sticking out. And I just wanted these cables to come out onto the roof so that if I ever change the panels, you know, get different panels, add panels, subtract panels, all I got to do is disconnect right here, and I can do whatever I want with other panels. So there's my mess. Let me move over a few inches with the ladder. You know, if I had made that just a little bit longer, I wonder if it would have stretched, but it's all right. I'm not worried about it. I wanted to make some short cables. All right, so maybe I can use those short cables that I had on the inside on my shelf. Maybe I can make them work. Let me go get them. All right, that is my 2 ends of my cables. And then these are the two ends in series. It's very short, just 2 feet or less. I think I'll make those little tiny cables. Yeah, just these little tiny ones. I'll put some new ends on so that they all match up and are the same ends. But other than that, I'm gonna just make these into cables and hook it up, see where we're at. I hooked up the parallel adapters, and I don't even need extension cords for the parallel, so I'm hooked up in there. Let's go inside for a minute and play with this. All right, so we have parallel panels going to this circuit breaker and down, and we have cable MC4 cable ends on there. If I were to lift the bed and disconnect the other solar cables, I could connect to that in parallel, and we can see the electricity coming in, and I can show you how much I get parallel in the shade. All right, so we got our solar wires that come in through the pass-through hatch, travel along the floor to right here and connect to my original factory supplied from Bluetti wires, adapter set wire, I don't know, that goes from MC4 connectors to their I think an aviation input, aviation cable. So let's get that disconnected right here and connected to our new solar input. A little clarification. It goes from the MC4 connectors to an XT, I guess 90, I'm not sure. And then from the XT90 to the aviation. All right, we are connected to the new cables coming in through our circuit breaker, and we are receiving no PV photovoltaic energy. I have yet to flip the switch, so let's hope that I don't let the magic smoke out. I think there's a very low probability of letting the magic smoke out, but let's hope it doesn't happen. Here we go. On. And there we go. A tremendous increase from 50 to 60. That's what I told you. I don't seem to get a whole lot more in parallel compared to series in the shade. So I don't use those parallel adapters very often. I don't get that much extra. You know, if it was double or something from 50 to 100, it would be worth it. But an extra 10 watts for 4 or 5 hours, and then I think I get less than in series in full sun. So I don't like to mess with it. I just leave it on series, and that's the way I do it. All right, so let's make those cables, connect our stuff upstairs in series, and then we'll come back and connect it again down here. And there we have our two short cables. Now I'm pulling in 240, 230. It was about 250 a minute ago. 229, 220. That's with the parallel adapters up there. That's with the panels in parallel. Let's go use these extension cables and put it into series and see if we get much different. I almost forgot. I'm civilized now. I got a cutoff switch. Never had that before. Hooked back up in series now. Let's go flip a switch. You can see the panels are partially shaded. At least this one is. What was it before? I can't remember. Well, it's either better or worse. It might be worse. Was it 250 or something? I can't remember. 223. Yeah, I remember looking at 250 and a little less. So now it's, 150, 160, 130, kind of depending on how that one panel is shaded. Anyway, we'll get better sun soon.